Fantastic. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of From the Fourth Line. My name's Emma, and I'm joined, as always, by my fabulous co-host, Marcie. And today we're joined by a very special guest. We're joined by Flavio, who is on Twitter. I don't know if you want to say your @ so that people can find you.
The painfully optimistic Leaf fan. Sometimes I'm the passionately optimistic Leaf fan. Not with Brad Trillivant.
And we're here to talk about, kind of give like a fun little bonus episode to talk all things trade deadlines and prospects and just everything going on, primarily specific, but it's been a busy day for
understatement.
For the trade deadline. It's understatement of the century. We do have quite a few trades to discuss. I think maybe I don't want to say the blockbuster of the day, because I don't know if it really was a blockbuster, but I think I don't know if it was expected, but Tarasenko to Florida was kind of what started off.
It's a blockbuster because Ottawa got so little, and because it's an absolute steal for them. He's producing it similarly like he did in St. Louis. He still has an NMC, but from what I understand and what a lot of people have said, it's more around his NTC, and he said, I just want to go to Florida. At the same time, I don't think that's enough to say, okay, we can't get good value. Florida doesn't have a lot, but that should not be an excuse to why you have to undersell on a player.
Yeah,
because the other things are they didn't have to make this deal today. And who knows in 2 days if the Bruins, for example, they get Elias Lindholm. And cross my heart, the Leafs get something big. And now Florida's looking like, okay, we might actually have to make a move. These teams have gotten better. That could force them into, okay, maybe we have to give up a first. Maybe we have to give up a second. Maybe we have to give up this. Maybe we have to give up that. That's more the issue that I see with it. It's a good trade, but the value coming back to Ottawa, it's really... For Staios' first trade...
It's not a good one.
It's a really ugly one to start off with.
What I do want to say about the Tarasenko trade, and I just want to say this...
Makes me curious about Chychrun.
Yeah, Chychrun, that's another one. It makes me
very curious about Chychrun, and if they're thinking about giving up Kubalik for a 7th, because at that point they might as well.
Yeah, but is Tarasenko, I don't know, maybe like at the end of the day they could not at all be similar players, but Tarasenko to me getting a lower return than Sean Monahan. And if you look at their numbers, they're somewhat similar, and just in pure counting stats, and I can see your face. But just in pure counting stats, Sean Monahan going for a first, and Florida had no first to give up.
Well, they did, because it's really down the line. Yeah,
it's way down the line, but like in the next 3 drafts, which is primarily what you're looking at when you're trading picks at the deadline.
Of course.
It's funny because Florida, like people are like, yeah, they do on cap front. It's a conditional that they could lose because of Sean Monahan.
They will lose because of Sean Monahan. Because the Flames aren't going to be good enough to be in the upper echelon of the draft, and they're not bad enough to be mid.
Yeah.
Sorry, they're too bad to be good, and they're too good to be mid.
Yeah.
They're too bad to be mid, and they're
not
bad to be
in the
good
middle
enough.
of
they're not middle of the pack. They're bad.
Yeah.
They're going to be in that like 8 to 10 spot, because that's kind of just how they're built.
Especially if they keep spelling.
Especially when they get rid of Hanafin and Markstrom, and who else knows what they're going to get rid of.
Yeah.
At the same time, comparing Tarasenko and Monahan is like, it's like comparing I'm trying to think of a good analogy. It's like comparing a filet mignon to a nice porterhouse. Yes, they're both good steaks. One is obviously way more expensive and way better.
Yeah.
The thing is, I'm comparing Sean Monahan as the filet mignon, because the reason is you're getting less, but you're still paying premium. Tarasenko's the porterhouse. He's really good off the rush. Yes, his defensive numbers aren't the best, but that's not what you're expecting from a right wing.
Yeah,
His
like
scoring is still good. He's going to be on a team that knows how to get him the puck. I feel like you could still get more. The thing is, being a center, it always props up value. It's the same reason Adam Henrique went for a first. He doesn't have the numbers that Tank has. He doesn't. At the same time, I feel like there's stuff that could have been done better from Ottawa's perspective, and especially for a team that, said they were going to be sadly, ready to compete.
last year they were was it last year too as well that people were like, oh,
last year they were expected to compete. Doesn't mean they were gonna. But
doesn't mean they were. I think every year we hear from Sens fans, and I don't know if I come in with a different perspective living in Ottawa, but it's like, oh, Sens, could make a run this year. And I think what we could see, and especially now with how they're going now, is we could see Buffalo leapfrog them.
Yeah, and I think that is a real thing here, and I think that should bring us to our next trade.
Byram and
Bowen Byram to Buffalo for Casey Middlestat. Who I
love the 1-for-1 trades. It is. We don't see them.
I have no issues with the trade itself, but it has genuine, massive consequences for the team. The Sabres have too many left-handed defensemen.
Sure,
you have Darlene, you have Power, you have Byram. The thing is, all three of those could be 1Ds. They all can, and they all have potential to be. Byram's a former 4th overall pick, and he has all the tools of the trade. He's fast. Fast enough. He's fast enough to get to get into the rush and still get back. He has a great shot. He has good playmaking ability.
He's a Stanley Cup champion.
He's a Stanley Cup champion. The other thing is, his numbers have really dipped on his offside. And if Buffalo's planning to use him on his offside, I don't know if that's the genuine best scenario. But when you're looking at Buffalo's perspective, no matter what they do, you have 3 guys who were picked from 1, 1, and 4. You have probably one of the most balanced left sides ever because they're all good. The right side is when it gets uglier, but in the sense of what the trade does, it's not bad value at all.
Yeah.
Colorado, on the other hand, you get what you need. You dumped Ryan Johansson in a trade we'll talk about in a bit, or we can bring it up now, which is Sean Walker to Colorado for Ryan Johansson in the first, and a 5th coming back to Colorado, which I was very surprised about.
Yeah.
Because that literally just meant Sean Walker was not worth a first.
It's like he's worth a second, except Colorado doesn't have the second. Yeah. I don't know if they do have the second.
I think they do have a second down the road, but not now. I think they're in a similar spot as the Leafs. I think they have a second. I don't think
they have their second's 2026.
Yes, I believe that's the case.
I'm looking at their cap.
Okay, beautiful. What do they get? They get a guy who was the top, one of the top scorers at even strength this year, earlier in the season, not and last season, I'm pretty sure. And you get a second line center, and you get a young one, and you get a really good one. Is his numbers the best? I wouldn't say so. He's got some really good defensive stats, which surprised me. And his offense is, up and down, but that's kind of Buffalo as a team. You put him on a power play with Rantanen, McKinnon, Makar, you could have a really deadly combination. And back to Sean Walker having a right side to compare to Buffalo's left side of Makar, Walker, and Manson, you have a really, really good right side. You have 3 guys there that could be top 4s on almost any. Makar's a 1D on any team. Manson's a top 4 on almost any team, and Sean Walker is basically the same thing. He's not the same thing in the sense of style. Like, one's 6'4" and will hit you like a truck. The other one will just skate past you. But I think from a perspective of how it upgrades the team, Colorado is even more frightening than they were before, and all they really need is a goaltender. And if they get a goaltender, it's going to be a frightening fight in the West.
Yeah, I think the West, compared to years past where it's always been seen as the weaker division, I think they're not weaker conference, I should say, not division. I think it's one of those conferences now that is scarier because
Well, here's
there's
the thing. Oh, sorry. Continue.
I was gonna say that yes, there's a huge gap between like the bottom and the top, like the gap, between your Ducks and your Sharks and whatever, and Vegas, Colorado, Vancouver, Edmonton is huge, right? But the ones who are at the top, the ones who are like the teams who are making the playoffs, all of them, you could be like, well, they could, which I don't know if that's necessarily what you could say in the East. Like,
You can't. You can't.
is
The other thing
Detroit Red Wings, like, are the Detroit Red Wings a cup contending team? No.
I don't think so.
No.
I'm going to say one thing about the West, and this is probably what I think has happened, and it's been so many teams in the West have been slowly building. In the East, you have a lot of guys that are like, okay, we have a decent core. We're going to go out and get some people, and we're ready. The West, they've really relaxed and kept building and building and building. For example, a team like Dallas, they made the Cup final in 2021.
Bubble.
2020.
They lost to Tampa.
They lost to Tampa, but they made the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah.
Then they went and they started building their third prospect pool. Wyatt Johnston, Logan Stankoven. They went out and got Niels Lundqvist. They went out and got a lot of things that they needed. Got Mason Marchment. Got Matt Duchene this year at good value. That's just one team. Vegas, they've been at it since they came into the league. They've gotten so much good value for stuff that it is genuinely amazing. And they haven't given up much to do it. The Mark Stone trade, I think we could perfectly say that was a fleece, in the sense that it already got them a cup. And Eric Brandstrom's like their 7th D right now on Ottawa. Another team there, Edmonton, they've been slowly building. Yes, they've taken steps that they shouldn't have with, for example, the Jack Campbell deal, but Stuart Skinner is a good goaltender. You've upgraded your defense with Ekholm. Hyman's turned out to be a great pickup.
Late bloomer for sure.
Yeah. Then you have a team, for example, like Winnipeg, who had stuff that was working, and then you had to go away from Line A, and you went and got Dubois. Dubois didn't work out. Now you got pieces that you needed in Velarde and Kupari and Iafallo, and you built your team more balanced. Your defense is looking better with guys like Nate Schmidt and Dylan DeMello and Brendan Dillon that you slowly added over the years. And that's another team in the West that can really do some damage. A team that a lot of people have looked at and said, okay, they could be sellers, Nashville. They went out and got veteran leadership, but they also went out and got veteran presence. And what that means is guys that know how to win and guys that know how to score. Getting a guy like Ryan O'Reilly on a team that's not had a number one center for a very long time is massive. When your number one center goes from Matt Duchene to Ryan O'Reilly, it changes a lot. Adding a guy like Nyquist, adding a guy like Shen, having UC Soros, who's probably a consistent Vezina caliber goaltender. He hasn't been that this year, which is surprising, but that's the outlier.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know, like the goaltending from the guys who were like, oh, Vezina caliber. So Vasilevsky, Shesterkin, Sorokin. I think that whole group of
I forgot the biggest fish in the pond. The Canucks. They've been building a team for a while. Besser, Pedersen. Then you went out and got Hronek. Then you went out and Demko developed into probably one of the best goals in the league. You went out and you got OEL and Connor Garland. Connor Garland's still here. OEL's doing well in Florida, but you had to buy him out. But, that's part of the thing. That's part of what happens. You went out and got Carson Soucy. You went out and got Ian Cole. You got things that you needed, and now you're in a spot where you could compete.
And I think if you compare that to a team like Toronto, where I think it's always been, okay, what can we do this season?
Yeah, and that's another thing.
We see this core is prime, and that's always what we hear is, oh, these guys, the four.
It's the core. It's the core
/5.
This, that. Here's the thing about that mentality and how it's kind of screwed the Leafs in giving up guys like Marchment, giving up guys like Trevor Moore, giving up guys like Sean Dursey. having depth is never a bad thing. Having depth people want is a very good thing, but not understanding when is the biggest issue. These guys couldn't help then, but they could have played and still help now. That is where I think the real disconnect from the fan base happens. Is people are mad for trading Marchment. People are mad for trading for more. People are mad at trading Kadri. People are mad at trading a lot of things. Yes. Was it smart? No. But at the time, in a win now situation, we needed a top 40. Oh, Tyson Berry to get in the playoffs. We'll get him. Oh, Kerfoot had 40 points. Oh, we'll get him too. What do we give up? Kadri's been suspended 2 years. I guess so. Oh, we need a goaltender. And Michael Hutchinson's not cutting it. And Freddie's not cutting it. Jack Campbell, how much are you going to cost? Okay, we got to give up our fourth line guy that's playing Trevor Moore. Okay. It's these quick fixes.
And the quick fixes
when you're in that win now option. But that's what I think Treliving's trying to get away from this year.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to go all in on this year. He wants to go multiple. He wants to look at how this team is and fix it from its foundation, because the foundation's intact, but it's cracked.
But like, I want to like, is that what, I don't know how, but is what Brad Treliving is doing and sort of slowly adding to and creating a longevity? Does some of them
is that better than going all in?
No, I'm not saying that, because we absolutely see like the go in all and win now doesn't necessarily work 90% of the time, and we've seen that with teams, that have won recently. But I'm more talking about the way that, is that something that he feels more confident doing when you have Austin Matthews locked down for how many more years? When you have Nylander, 5 more years. When you have Nylander locked down for 8. When you have Marner's up in 2. Okay, well, in theory, he should be an easy sign, because you pull
Tavares off the books at the same time.
You have Tavares off the books at the same time. Riley's here at a huge hometown not hometown because he's from Vancouver, but a huge discount. Like, he wants to be here, right?
He could have gotten a lot more on the market, and a lot of people say he couldn't, but he could have.
He could have.
The way people value offense in this day and age, Dougie Hamilton got 9. Riley could have gotten 9.
Especially when he was a free, maybe not now he wouldn't have gotten
free agent,
but back, when he did sign this deal, he's locked down for what, 6 more years, right?
7
he's
years.
7 or how many, he's past what Cat Friendly will show you.
Well, no, you could scroll.
Yeah, you can scroll, but when you look at the,
I mean, it also says on the side, it says UFAs.
But you know what I mean when you look at
I get what you mean.
Is that maybe why he's
being he's relaxed?
Yeah, relaxed.
At this deadline, I think it is, because I think the other thing he's really looked at, and this is how just Brad Treliving is, he doesn't build his team in season. He builds it in the offseason.
Yeah.
Do I think you could make mistakes in the offseason? Of course you can. John Klingberg was not a good signing. At 4.1, it was not a good signing.
But it was a gamble.
It was
because
a gamble.
You either have
a top 4 offensive D-man, or you have
LTIR
money, or you have someone who's healthy and can kind of produce, but is a travesty in their own end. I wouldn't do that personally, but I understand where it came from. At the same time, I think what Brad's really looking at, one, is this UFA class with guys like Matt Roy and Brett Pesce and Dylan DeMello.
The list is
lovely. It's a big list too. Especially with guys when LA is really probably not signing Matt Roy, with how their defense is made, with guys like Jordan Spence ready to take jobs. Brant Clark looks like he's ready to take a top 4 spot, and lots of issues cap wise. I think they're spending over $30 million on their defense just by itself, and they have 2 guys in there that are what's the word, ELCs. It's a lot. At the same time, Brett Pesce, for example, I don't know if the Canes want Scott Morrow to get right into a role with the team. I would expect it. I think he's 23 now. If he's still young, then fair enough. But I feel like he's probably going to want to get some NHL minutes. Nikishin's another right D-man who's like ready, who's killing the KHL. So why wouldn't he be ready for the N, or at least a role to try? Brett Pesce's 29. I don't think they're getting any younger. I also don't think Dmitry Orlov is going to be playing third line minutes. Which is another thing that brings me is Brady Shea. Another guy I think Brad would love. 6'3", plays a rugged, hard game, good defensively. Like he ticks all the boxes for him. I think he's really looking at that, and he's also looking at this draft class, which is stocked with stocky defensemen, guys that are big, hard-hitting, and they play a simple game. And with defensemen, in my opinion, the thing you got to look at is the skating. If he's big and he can skate, and he has at least decent defensive awareness, you could teach it. You could teach him. You could teach him.
That's what the Marlies are there for.
Yeah, but I also think it would help the Marlies to get a little influx of talent because they've been really struggling there with a lot of
Marcie
growlers.
can tell you.
I mean, I know for a fact because I watch Marlies games. But
Marcie watches a lot of the games.
Ugly defensively.
And you can see it have an impact on their
the only guy
too.
the guy who only looks good there is Niemela, and it's a fact.
Yeah.
Like he's the only guy he's in position. He can clear the puck out. He can skate it up the ice. His D partner is in La La Land.
But yeah, I want to know though, like
consistency, and you're only getting it from one person.
Yeah, and I'll give Rafai the same thing because he's not that bad, but his partner is just.
But I want to know, like, is the poor defense with the Marlies, does that make Dennis Hildeby look better than how good he already is?
No, it makes him look worse.
I make him looks worse, but like, you know, does his stats don't reflect how, like, yes, his stats are amazing right now, but like,
I will say this, he took the job from Matt Tompkins in the SHL. That's already hard to do. And Matt Tompkins is playing, I think, backup for the Lightning now. He took that job and he ran with it in the SHL. He's a very big goaltender, but he has really good movement. And the real thing,
and that's what we hear that all the time.
Goalies,
like even Joseph Wool said it himself.
Yeah. The thing with big goalies is they're usually a lot more not compact. What's the word? They're a lot less agile than you'd think for being that big because they have to move more to do something. It's that agility and that speed which really helps him. The one thing with Hildeby is he can go from post to post in a second. And he can really show you how good he is high glove and high blocker. And it's really a matter of that I think really makes people interested in him. He has the potential to be a 1B goaltender. Another guy, though, is Akitimov in...
He's KHL, isn't he? Oh. Did we all get the same notification? Just got the notification that
the former Sabre himself
will not be available for tonight's game due to illness. As we know, there's a flu bug for like the 4th time this season going around the Leafs locker room.
They get sick as often as I do, which is like,
I think is part, like, I don't want to be all conspiracy theory being like, oh, is the fact that so many of them have kids, but like,
I mean, Bert still hasn't been vaccinated.
Yeah, there can be multiple causes there.
I'm just gonna say it. I'm just kidding. Okay, back to Hildeby.
Yeah,
it's more his movement that gives him thing. Back to I don't know how to say his name. I'm gonna call him Archer because that's what his first name is in the VHL now and in the KHL. VHL. He is 6'1", but he is the definition of a Russian goalie. And what that means is his numbers look good and he looks good behind a crappy team. That is the most important thing. He faces a high volume of shots and he stops a lot of them. Really good movement, really good high glove for someone who's only 6'1". He's the definition of a classic Russian goalie that knows his stuff, and he has really good potential, in my opinion. Okay. That's all I got to talk about the Marlies, unless you want me to go into more prospects.
No, I was just thinking about, like, I don't know. And this is because this is something me and Marcie talk about all the time when it comes to Leafs goaltending is, who knows what we do with Samsonov next year, whatever, but would you always think about what would a pairing of like a Joseph Wool and Dennis Hilda be?
I think it'd be fine.
It'd
I think it'd
be
be just fine. I think it'd be just fine because Hildeby has shown that ability to compete. And I think this is basically what I'm going to say, and it's what Scott Wheeler said in his prospect page for goaltenders. He said, I would not be surprised if he's the backup next year, and if he's not, he's going to be fighting for it with whatever third goaltender's there. He will be. And it's just because he's that solid and that good at keeping pucks out of the net, but also a high volume of chances in close. And I think that's one of the more important things about a Leaf goaltender, especially for in a team that struggles really to clear the front of the net. And when you get to that slot area, it's really a matter of just being as big as you can be. With the way they get, with the way teams tip shots through and stuff like that. Yes, Hildeby has the occasional gaff, but that's any young goalie. Any goalie makes that. UC Soros was out of the net and the puck went in when David Savard shot it off the glass. It happens.
I had to watch that like 7 times to figure out what happened.
The quality that TSN posted it in was like 280p, but yeah.
I was watching it through the NHL app where the camera angle was not good. But also as well, while we're talking about Leafs prospects, and I know we talked a little bit about him before, but just in terms of what's going on tonight, Holmberg healthy scratch for Gregor. Yeah, David Alter.
I mean, you want Gregor to play. You want Gregor to play. I also think he had a really physical game against Boston, so maybe it's a little bit of tweak something.
Yeah.
But I also feel like he's played.
Camp is in.
Yeah, I understand that, but playing enough, he has played a lot of games.
He's healthy enough to play.
He's played a lot of games, so I'm not going to put too much stock in it. I'm just going to look at it as saying also probably want someone who's not tired tomorrow.
That's what you have to balance too.
It's a back-to-back. It's probably why they say McCabe is out with illness.
It's almost about going around.
It's almost like Buffalo's a physical team, and we don't want to deal with that, and we want to have our best physical defenseman healthy. I think that's a fair option. Exactly.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is Noah Gregor is finally going to have his chance to earn my fantasy team some points.
Your fantasy team concerns me greatly.
Yes.
That you have Noah Gregor. Like there's some
guys that
but it's not.
It's
there's someone in our league who has Zach Aston-Ray still on their roster, and I look at that and I shudder.
You have to respect it at this point. The commitment.
I respect it at this point. To keep him at this point, I think he's played one game in the NHL this season for Detroit.
A lot of scouts.
Well, sad time of year.
Seattle, Colorado, Vancouver, New York, Boston, Dallas, Ottawa, Carolina, and LA. Well, they're not scouting Robertson because he's not playing, but
yeah. Who would you be scouting then?
I can easily see them probably scouting McMahon. He's a UFA.
Yeah, no, nah. we love McMahon too much.
I mean, I don't think he's gonna go anywhere. I think he's gonna get re-signed pretty easily. He fits what the team likes and what they need. Back to prospects quickly. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, and
since you brought up Holmberg, McMahon's been good. Robertson unfortunately sent down, but I thought he played fine when he was up. Now to prospects not in the NHL, to the WHL. Minton unfortunately had a little point drought. I think he got a goal on Saturday.
It was the 7-minute playoff, right? Where it was like a 7-minute power play or something?
That was a 7-minute power play. He scored with within the first 30 seconds. Yes.
I saw that. I was like,
yes, it was a 7-minute power play. Also, yes, it was a tap-in. It was the 19th goal of the season, but something good to look at. Still over a point per game. Cowan, 29th game straight with a point, which he has not had a game without a point since November, which is really impressive. Nikita Gribionkin in the KHL playoffs right now, 2 points in 3 games played, but he got moved up to their first left wing, so that's another guy to be excited about. I think he was he ended the season with 42 points, which I think is 5th for U21 KHL scoring in season, which is really impressive when you look at guys on that list like Tarasenko and Kuznetsov, Kaprizov,
and
Yurov, who's a really a nice prospect. I'm pretty sure for Minnesota. If he's not, I apologize, Minnesota fans. If you watch this or not.
I don't know if we've attracted any Minnesota fans to the podcast.
I mean, I will be reposting this podcast. So
yeah, no, I don't. I have said that I've become fond of Minnesota this season, just in the fact that they've got a lot of likable players. I think, anytime a team has Fleury, it makes them likable, in my opinion.
Just dropped a bomb. Plenty of potential deal scenarios out there, but this one I heard has caught my attention. Gensel to the Canucks, DeBrusk to the Penguins, Lindholm to the Bruins.
Oh,
it's not official. It's an idea, but it's a pretty insane one. Okay,
that's the big one, because that's what we have. Because that's the hugest.
I will also say, Gensel. Happily take Jake DeBrusk off the Bruins. He always scores.
Anything to make our life easier. Like, no, okay, whatever. Gensel goes to Vancouver. I'm also going to say
this. I feel like that's someone that Brad would like in free agency.
Oh, yeah. I think so. Jake DeBrusk.
100%.
Yeah.
Jake DeBrusk.
Like, that's the thing. Like, send Jake Gensel to Vancouver. Maybe we never see him in the playoffs. Like, that's, like, if we don't see Jake Gensel in the... Ah, well. What are you...
I think I just saw a tweet that said, I believe.
Ryan Leslie.
Noah Hanafin is heading to Vegas.
Yeah, Ryan Leslie. I'm just looking at the exact same one right now.
I like Noah Hanafin. Why? This is like all this week's been for me is just me sat there hearing like, oh, this player that I like is going to a team I don't like.
I mean, I'll take him there over Florida.
Anywhere in the East. Literally, that's the thing where I'm like, okay, the good, like those big ticket going to the West, you know what? At the end of the day, not the worst thing in the world for the Leafs.
I'm going to say one thing about this season and next season, which is going to be different. The Panthers. You have to sign Luosterainen. You have to sign Forsling. You have to sign Montour. You have to sign
Reinhart.
A bunch of guys.
Reinhart, I think, has Reinhart, I don't want to say priced him out of Florida, but
I don't know if he's priced himself out, but I also feel like he probably wants to stay in Florida because I think it's the best situation for himself. But
like, has he priced other guys out of Florida with this season?
I feel like Montour has priced himself out of Florida. And I could see Brad being interested in him for the fact that he's a former Duck. And he loves those. But he also has good numbers, so I'm not going to say no to that.
Yeah.
At the same time, I'd love that just so I could tweet at Nick Kiprios, see, we didn't have to trade Nylander to get him.
The thing that I think about...
That's beside the point. Back to now, and if this Hanafin to Vegas thing, I think that's a very good move for them.
I think any move Vegas has made has been a good
every
one
move Vegas makes just makes them closer to becoming back-to-back, and they didn't need to make any moves in the first place to become back.
No, that's what's scary.
That's the thing that really scares me. What also interests me is, what are they getting back? Because I don't think Vegas is paying a very little.
Vegas also has a surprising. They have a surprising amount of picks.
They have
like when you think about
everything. They did not give up much to help their team. To make their team what it is. They did everything they wanted. Yeah, they have everything.
It's 3 firsts.
Yeah, they got everything with term, and when they got rid of their picks, they didn't shy away from getting them right back.
And they've got a lot of guys. Like, I'm sorry, I'm just looking at their cap friendly page. They've got a lot of guys for very like mostly in their forward. I'm looking at for like very little. Like their highest paid player.
Another guy I'd look at on that roster is
Jack Eichel.
Caden Korzak, really good young right D, but I don't think he's gonna have any spot to play. Which sucks.
No, Vegas is full of like they have a lot of defensemen.
Mm-hmm. I'm saying I think Korzak is a guy who might not get qualified, and if he doesn't, I would jump on that. He's 22 and he's incredible numbers.
Especially
for what
with,
he's done, he has really good numbers. 6'3" right-hand defenseman who hits, physical, talented, really good guy. Sorry, that just popped into my head.
No, I'm thinking like Vegas, like right deep, like especially with the Ben Hutton signing, Leaf legend Ben Hutton.
Leaf legend.
Yeah, Friedman just said it. Hanafin to Vegas.
For what? Okay, Friedman for what though?
I don't know, but we'll figure it out eventually or never.
Who knows?
He broke it live on the air, looking at his phone.
He did?
That is amazing. I'm sending it.
No.
Oh my god.
We need to have a group chat just for the fourth line. Just for me to send stuff to both of you.
Oh my god.
We do have one where it's like us and then the show's account, so it's separate from our own DMs where it's just us sending tweets about stuff we want to talk about on the show. Today, oh my god, today has just, it's been like a lot of it's just been us going, what, how, who, what, for what? Like I think for like the Byram Middlestat trade had us very confused.
I mean, it didn't have me confused. It had me like, oh my god.
Well, not confused, but it was
that left side is going to be deadly. That's what it was.
I will say though, the one thing I will, not to loop back to something we've already discussed, but more in the concept of, I love 1-for-1 trades. I think there's something we don't see often enough in the NHL, and I think part of that is due to the salary cap.
Yeah.
And that change, like that affects things. Like it's so hard for teams to value that the same way.
It's also, we've really gotten screwed over by the flat cap, and it's really prevented guys from being able to make moves.
Yeah.
Now, what were we even talking about before that happened? What were we even talking about? I forgot.
I know
now.
Elliot. That's not the first time Elliot Friedman has.
Elliot bomb.
Yeah.
But Friedman bomb. Okay. Man said it live on the air.
I love that.
Hey, Marcie, I sent it to you. He literally broke it live on the air.
Oh my god.
Oh, it just sounded in the phone.
Honestly, like.
Oh, I'll send that to them. I actually love that so much.
Right. I hope they get something good though.
I do, yeah. I mean, you don't want it, but also at the same time.
I mean, I do want it because I'd rather have a team in the West.
Yeah, like it's better than Florida, but then yeah,
better that's than all I'm gonna say. It's better than either of them. Back to the point at hand, what we were talking about. Does anybody remember?
I don't even know. This happens all the time on this show.
Prospects, which I think I was talking to Cowan, and then that happened. So
yeah, Cowan. I don't like. I think because I've been saying this now for quite some time, ever since the Nylander signing, is the Leafs are going to be in like the 7th circle of cap hell next year with having Austin at Austin at 13.
It was the Panthers' future.
Yeah, Austin's at 13. Mitch is at 10. Willie is at 11.5. Tavares is at 11. You don't really want to count Riley, but Riley's 7 adds to that, right? You need ELC. So a lot of people are like, oh, trade we gotta, people are like, what if we trade Minton? What if we throw Minton in a trade? No, you need those ELCs because yes, those players are going to be young, whatever, but like you need them because they're what's going to be able to actually have you like be able to afford a roster. And I think the biggest underrated contract for the Leafs next season is Joseph Wool at $776,000.
Yep.
Because
it's the same concept as Logan Thompson. Logan Thompson has 2 more years though.
Yeah.
At $762K.
Because that
is your starter. That's your starter.
That's your starter, and you have him for
$700K.
less than $800,000, and that's what you need because you can't afford anything else because you're doing that. And then, do you re-sign Tavares? Maybe, but you're re-signing Tavares for way less. You have to.
Yeah, a ton less. And that's another thing I think that Brad's really excited about is if he can get the pieces that he wants this offseason in this decor, he can do exactly what he wants. And looking at where this team is, what would you say they need? I think it's a top right D, but you could get a top left or another top second pair or lefty or right D, in my opinion. I think if you go Riley, for example, Matt Roy, but you could also probably go get Brady Shea with Liljegren. And then you have a really good top 4, in my opinion. Of course, this is, delusional Leaf fan stuff and hoping for the best, but you never know.
If that's not what we do on this show, then what do we do here?
That's a fair point.
So we are very familiar
I do that in my
with
daily life, so
yeah.
I just find I have an outlet for it. But yeah. Another thing is back to Florida. I don't think they'll be able to keep a lot of guys that they think that they probably should.
You look at what happened to Tampa.
In my opinion, are really going all in this year, and it means they're not going to be able to go all in next year and the year after.
Which is when you do go, not all in, but it's when you do.
Like putting this in perspective, say for example, just randomly, the Panthers lose Montour and they're going to re-sign Forsling. Let's say they lose guys like Luosterainen, and I think maybe Nick Cousins is up too. There's a couple guys. They lose a couple guys, but the big one, let's say for somehow Reinhart leaves. That's a big hole. And if Montour leaves, that's a big hole. There's a lot of things that are pushing it to be this year, when they can't have it be next year. Because a lot of people forget, before the Tkachuk trade, Bill Zito looked terrible. He moved a first for Sherratt, he moved a first for Giroux, and he got swept in the second round. He had one last first, and he threw the definition of a prayer.
Hail Mary.
Which was Huberdeau, a first, and Uyghur. What?
Sorry, Darren Dreger, as of 11 seconds ago, contract extension in the works with Hanafin for Vegas.
I will be happy with that.
I have never.
I know he's not a Panther or a Bolt. That is the best news possible.
Oh.
Hanafin, Pietrangelo, McNabb, Theodore, Martinez, Whitecloud. My God, that's incredible. That is an insane decor. But also, yes.
But yeah, that is something special. Put it that way.
That is going to put more pressure on the Panthers. That's putting a lot more pressure on the Panthers and the Lightning.
Yeah, and because Lightning, they had
Frank has done this so many times. He says he only wants that team, and then someone else is just like, oh, mine. He did this with McCabe. He's like, oh, Jake McCabe really fancies the Tampa Bay Lightning. Toronto's like, him. He's like, oh, you're not on my NTC. Yeah. Again, another lefty, but also Vegas is very enticing.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Back to the future of this team and how I think the East is going to line up. Guys like Detroit, and here's the thing I see so many people talk about. Detroit has the best future in the NHL, and I'm like, yeah, it looks really good. What happens when guys are top 6 guys can't be playing because of JT Compher and Andrew Copp, and guys that you have signed for multiple years? It really becomes an issue. You really don't want Edvinsson playing because you gave Sherratt 4 years. It's a really bright future, but timing is everything.
Yeah.
It's for example, imagine if before the Leafs got Marner and Nylander to play, they had P.A. Parento playing. Oh, he was doing well.
Fucking P.A. Parento.
Instead,
I'm sorry.
P.A. Parento was a great Leaf when he
for
did
the
exactly
one
what
season he was
Yeah,
here.
but that's
Top
all he had to
scorer,
be here.
20 goals.
That's all we needed, and now we have a 70-goal scorer. Things change fast.
Sorry, oh my god, P.A. Parento. Oh my god. I think I definitely went to a game that season too as well. Like I went to the home opener the season before.
I went to the Buffalo and Leafs preseason game where Bernier fought, which is pretty cool.
But yeah, it was like one of those. Anyway, sorry. It's like one of those names.
Because
like
there's an
you throw up
extension,
P.A. Parento.
That probably really juiced up the return because there's an extension.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Are they getting back? What are they getting back?
Could it be
probably Korczak? I could see Korczak. They probably want him. I talked about him.
Would it be like hockey or would it be picks? Like that's the thing that
both. It'd be both because
it would be both.
Extension. Because there's an extension, it'd be both. And to be honest, that's the smartest move they could have made, and that's amazing. That's really good for Calgary. I hope the return's good for them. I don't hate the Flames. I definitely hate everybody else.
But, maybe not Flames. Most I you know what I will say, and I will, because this was like the weird middle ground that the Flames were trapped in for so long, was do they go all in, or do they do they sell? Like that was the thing that was like
another thing. Do they make Ruberto's look like he's not back in Florida, but he looks better. He looks like a top 6 guy at least.
Yeah,
and that's the most you need. And back to my point, Bill Zito threw that Hail Mary. And he's so lucky it worked out.
Oh yeah, because it would have been his job.
St. Louis almost got Tkachuk, and if they did, he loses his job.
Yeah,
Bill Zito's screwed at that point. But he's done well. He's recovered from it. He still doesn't have any picks. Like he has nothing to offer right now. He has a first, and maybe that's it. His prospect pool is barren as hell. Spencer Knight is a $4.5 million AHL goaltender who's still trying to figure out his life. Which all the best to him.
But
there's a very interesting idea of how this team will be after this season. And I think that's what Treliving's looking at, because he's like, okay, I have Matthews locked up for 5. I have Mitch locked up for another 2. I have Tavares locked up for another 2. Yes, he's the 3C, but I still have some cap space to get a 2C if I need to. There's a lot of things that can work. If stuff worked out, it's really beneficial. And a lot of people are really underestimating how important this draft can be for the future when it comes to making up for what we don't have next year. They have 9 picks this year.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a matter of how it looks. I don't think Brad thinks. I think he believes that, if they go on a run, it's possible. I don't think he believes that this is a team that should be going all in and trying to acquire whatever the hell it can and giving up assets that they know they don't have next year.
And I said that last year just primarily based on the fact of like, you go in all in this year, you are so very screwed next year.
Yeah, and that's what happened.
Like and that's why I said, like, you look at the way this team, and I said this back when this team, like, back in November. I think I said that. I don't know if I ever said this on the show, but I said it right around when the time that we started this podcast, is where, like, this team, like, you also just have to look at, like, the RFAs and the free agents that this team has coming up, especially on the blue line.
Yeah.
Not so much forward, because the forwards you can fill in the gaps with Minton and Cowan and whoever else you want to pull out.
Guys like that. Yeah.
McMahon will probably resign easy and cheap, because
the blue line is where Brad knows the issues are.
And he's
another thing is, this blue line personally has never been built for Sheldon Keefe. It never has been. It never was built for Sheldon.
It's
too
complicated
like
for the way that Sheldon Keefe.
Exactly. He's really no nonsense when it comes to his defensive structure.
And it's built too complicated. It was built the way that Kyle Dubas would like to. If Kyle Dubas was behind the bench, it's built for Kyle Dubas.
That's the issue with Kyle Dubas.
He's not behind the bench.
Yeah. But you could also see things where he tried to influence behind the bench. Keefe this year and Keefe previous years is a very different thing. Yeah. He's called people out and he's not walked back on it. He's said what he said.
No.
Just back to it, I want to look at the 2014 Sioux Greyhounds, because I'm pretty sure they had a lot different with defense than at least this team. Yeah, like, let me look at the defense. Colton White, Connor Bowen, Matt Caldwell. You had guys that were big and you had guys that were small. But his top pair was Nurse and D'Angelo, and then you had Seneschin and guys like that. He had size.
Yeah.
The thing is, another thing with the Sioux Greyhounds, I think Jeff O'Neill said it best. These aren't just like a Memorial Cup favorite team that did amazing that you have to get everybody off of. It's like, nah, they were a decent team. That's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about what I think. I think this year is a lot more relaxed for Brad, because he believes that they can make a run a better run in free agency next year. I'm sorry, this year, basically, but with a better run next year as a team.
Yeah, I think also part of that was when he came into this team, which was 5 weeks before the draft.
Yeah, and what he
deadline.
said was, I want to make this about the Maple Leafs and not the Core Four.
Yeah, which is so true, which is, what this team never used to be for the past how many years? 4 or 5 years.
I'd agree.
And I think a lot of people are not cutting him enough slack, because he couldn't be on the draft floor until after the first round or whatever.
Cowan, so I don't care.
Yeah, but that's
like it worked out well. Wes Clark got who he wanted.
But and look at the way, like, Cowan at 28, fingers crossed, knock on wood, you look at it 2-3 years from now as an absolute steal, right?
You would hope so.
You would hope so, right? Fingers crossed, knock on wood.
Another thing I'm going to say about the Leafs drafting, just because I think you brought it up before the podcast when you were talking about, do you think that this Kyle Dubas in 2019 would do the same thing? It wasn't Wes Clark, though. And Wes Clark's brought a whole different idea to this draft, the drafting philosophy. If you look at the 2013, 14, and 15 draft and 16 draft, it is the biggest missed opportunity in Leafs history to build a great team.
You look at who,
but it's not just
the past.
But here's the thing: I'm not looking at the stars. I'm looking at guys like, you picked Dermott, but you could have had Chernak in the second round. You could have had Brandon Carlo in the second round. You could have had guys that fit what you needed and done better, but because you wanted to go a different way, you could have had Aho. You could have had some Debrincat or Kyrou instead of Korshkov. So many things that would have that could have gone right, just did not. And that's the part that hurts to me, at least, because you had the picks at that time. You were stocking up picks. This was your rebuild chance, but you only hit on about 5 out of 38. That's really just not good enough. And I think I want my uncle used to tell me is anytime the Leafs get a first round pick, you got to be worried about it because you never know when it's going to be good. That's how the 2000s was. They didn't know how to hit on their picks. They didn't.
Yeah, it was, and because you look at the guys who were stars for that, like, for the most of that Kessel Phaneuf era, which is
I'm even talking about just like 2005 to like 10.
Yeah,
there was nothing. Yeah. The best we got was basically, I'd say, Luke Shen. He didn't even stay.
He's not here. Didn't even stay. But like you look at,
and that's why I feel like drafting means so much more now, because you have that core in place that you need to hit on these. And yes, you could have some mistakes, but quantity over quality in drafts is not a bad thing. No. And another thing that Scott Wheeler brought up in his prospect review was the Leafs don't have a lot of A-grade prospects, but they have prospects that look like they'll play NHL minutes, and that's more than a lot of teams could say.
Which, especially for, again, not to bring it back to the Leafs.
They've hit on what they've hit, but they haven't busted on what they didn't hit.
Yeah, and not to bring back the Leafs like cap woes next year, but like that's what you need.
Yeah, you need it. It's guys like Thurberg.
You just because you need you next year
come into that fourth line spot and help. And I think that's another thing that Brad has acknowledged and he's accepted. And that's, I think, what the team really needs to embrace. Which, if they don't do anything at this deadline, it's a death sentence to the season, but it's not a death sentence overall.
Yeah, and I think because the Leafs I think Leafs fans in general, I don't want to say the Leafs, but I want to say like Leafs fans in general are so used to the Leafs playing it, like buying into this it's now or never model.
An idea, yeah. And Brad's
and I think we have to get used. And we have to get used to that not being the case.
My team in the offseason. Yeah. Brad's philosophy is I build my team in the offseason. I think that's what we have to realize is probably the case, because I don't think he saw something that he thought helped this team enough. And to be fair, what can you really look at and say, okay, this would help us with more than one run? David Savard's not doing that.
Yeah.
Guys with term are not doing that. Nick Jensen's not doing that. It's really a matter of what the market had and what we were able to accomplish. There wasn't much.
The one thing that I will say, and I'm only bringing this up, and maybe we'll end it off here, because I think we've gotten a good chunk of stuff.
I feel like we could go into one more topic.
Is I just wanted to bring this up only because I love asking people about this contract. Yeah, mostly because it's Brad Treliving's first contract that he did. And it's the David Kampf.
Oh, the Kampf one.
No. The Kampf one. People forget that this was his first contract that he did, and he came into the Leafs. And he goes, second. David Kampf. Is it a second?
It's a second. Holmberg was signed an hour before.
Well, I think it's
the first. Talk about his first signing, it was great. I thought Pontus Holmberg's a great addition for the $800K. It did exactly.
Yeah. But I think it's his first. No, it is 800.
For David Kampf's contract is a tough
2.4.
He fits the role he's good at, but at the same time, I'm not going to act like I would give him that contract myself. I think there was other options. I think it's more an issue of the fact that he's really one-dimensional, which is sad, but it's sadly the truth. And his offensive upside is very limited.
You can only play him on one spot on the lineup.
Yeah, and the penalty kill.
He wasn't playable on the third line.
He wasn't.
We saw that early this season.
Yeah, but there were also options I felt like internally that were better. I felt like Holmberg could have taken it. I felt like, do I think it's a bad contract? I say it's a 50-50. I think that money could have been used better, and they could have got him maybe cheaper, or maybe a replacement cheaper that could have been better. But it's a could. It's not a did. It's not a should. It's a possibility. It's an if. And if ifs and buts were candies and nuts, the Leafs are out of cup. So I'm not going to worry about it.
That's the only thing. The other thing is, like, I think I don't know if people even, not that I'm saying like the David Kampf contract is something that is talked about all the time, but the only thing that I always notice when I scroll through Leafs cap friendly play is that is a no move, no trade clause. He's got a 10-team list that goes until 25-26. So only when he's a pending UFA can you.
I'll ask you a question that I asked a couple people to gauge their not knowledge but understanding, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Would you rather have a high first that has top 6 40-goal potential? Would you rather have a 4th rounder with good size who's a no-nonsense shutdown defenseman?
Oh, God. This feels like and I don't want to say trick question, but it all depends on.
It's a fair question.
It's a fair question.
It's basically to understand what you would value more in a team. And what you feel like you could add and what you feel like you could get. Or what you feel like you could actually still have or not have, or what you think you need in a team. It's basically a question of what do you value more? Someone who's going to be solid defensively for likely a long period of time, or someone's going to put up a lot of points, a lot of goals. I ask this to a lot of people because it really makes me understand what they consider valuable, and it allows me to also ask them what type of players they would want in free agency, because that's just, I like to ask questions and not sound stupid. But it's a trick question. Mine is always the defenseman, because the one thing about D-men is you could get them in any round, but they could play anywhere in the lineup.
Yeah. Oh,
yes, a 40-goal score is a great thing to have, but sometimes preventing goals is more important than scoring them.
Yeah, because like it doesn't matter if you've got someone like scoring consistently time and time again. If you're letting in more goals than are being scored, like you could have someone scoring 70, and if you've got like no one.
I do love Phil the Thrill, so don't take that the wrong way. Don't take that the wrong way. I love Phil the Thrill. But I had to. It was too perfect.
Oh, God. Phil Kessel.
We still don't know the return.
No one knows
There's the return. Retention?
Stop.
There's retention on Hanafin.
No.
There will be some form of salary retention when complete.
Holy.
My goodness.
That's insane.
I mean, I'm just happy he's not in the East. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my. I think it's a good question to ask. It's a thought-provoking one. It's one where you really have to think about it. Because I never told you a team. I never told you what you already have. I just said you have an opportunity to take this player. What do you do? I personally always take the defenseman because I know that is what a team will always value more. Yes, he won't be the flashiest guy, but sometimes he's the guy that can win you a game. People always love to talk about the guy who deked past 5 people. They don't talk about the guy who cleared the puck off the line.
Or like, I think about not to bring up Alex Kerfoot, but that Alex Kerfoot was a Giordano shot tip in.
Yep. No, that's an Alex Kerfoot tip on the Gio shot.
Yeah.
You said it backwards, but that's okay.
I'm also trying to.
Oh, just a funny thing that happened. Well, during that game, when there was a scrum in front of the net, and Kerfoot's just there, and Willie just puts his arm around him, just like takes him away, like, "No, you're not part of this." It's hilarious. It's great. I wish I had the clip. It would be fucking perfect. But yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. No, because I was trying to also look up like just what Hanafin's salary is. So it'd be salary retention on a 4.9.
4.95. 4.95. Yeah. The fact that I know that off the top of my head is sad. I've done too much. I've been on Cap Friendly too much.
Oh no!
Ask me a contract, I'll probably know what it is.
That's the thing is like I
We can
think
do that
on
we
my
can do
because
that
I have a
after we stop recording. Just find a contract, ask me who it is, and I'll try and give it to you.
no, that's the thing. It's like I think on my work computer, I think I always consistently have a cat-friendly tab open on my work computer.
That's amazing. I always
Like
have
that's
Cat Friendly
how
open on
that's
my,
what I
thing. Another thing though I love to do on Cat Friendly is I'll post a trade that I know is an overpay, and I'll have people either get mad at it and they'll be like, no, this is too much. This is what I think is fair, and then I'll actually have a conversation with them that's not rude and obnoxious.
yeah. Oh my god. Okay. Well, I think that's solid for us for today. Thank you so much for coming on. It was a brilliant conversation. It was so fun to pick your brain on everything. We had a great conversation before we started recording. No, that's fine. We love that because it's fantastic, and we are trying to get more and more people on the show to just have different opinions. Yes, of course, it's different opinions from Leafs fans. So how diverse of an opinion can you get on that front? But it is truly just fantastic to have you on the show. So thank you so much for joining us. Again,
love to be here again.
You can find. We'll put your Twitter in the show notes, so you can find Flavio wherever on Twitter and go give him a follow there. Brilliant follow on Twitter. Oh, don't worry. I say all sorts of hot takes on this show that truly are something special.
Some really interesting things.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much for listening. I think we'll have another show tomorrow as well. So I think it's a 3-episode week for us, which is really special. A little special treat. It's a treat, but it is the trade deadline, so it's a special week in general. Yep. So thank you so much for listening to From the Fourth Line. You can follow the show on Twitter at From the Fourth Line. That's fourth with a 4th. And then you can find the show wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow me and Marcie on Twitter at PairB1 for myself, at 60 Leafs for Marcie. Thank you so much for watching us. And now we're going to go catch a Leafs game.